Yeah.
I'm Edward Norton.
And I'm Tim Blake Nelson, and our film, Leaves of Grass, is playing at the...
Exclusively at the Village East.
Please come see it.
Edward Norton and Tim Blake Nelson, welcome to the Village East Cinema.
Pleasure to be here.
I was just reading the New York Times today and they gave you an excellent review. They printed, Leaves of Grass is a film that keeps you deliciously off balance. It's funny and unnerving at the same time. How does it feel to open to such a great review?
I don't know, without feeling too full of ourselves, we really believe in the movie. I think Edward's performance is incredible, and so it's just obviously gratifying that when other people agree and disappointing when they don't. So we're happy about the review.
When people say, what kind of actor do you want to be? I say, funny and unnerving.
So yeah, it's been a long road. What's that? What were you pointing out?
I was saying, funny, unnerving.
Ah. Alright, so it's been a long road since the festival circuit. How does it feel to finally open limited release theatrically?
Look, we made the movie that we wanted to make, and we're very proud of it. To get a release is fantastic, but I think for both of us, just getting to make the movie we set out to make is priority number one, and now we're getting this release, and we're very happy about that.
Yeah, it's always fun to see people who aren't your friends and family actually putting up a few shekels to see your film.
You guys worked on The Incredible Hulk a few years ago, which was a major blockbuster Hollywood film, and now you're doing the total opposite with this film. What were the major challenges? I know there was many that you encountered.
Well, I think it's all the ones first. Why don't you start with this one?
I think it would be fair to say that the costume budget on the Hulk was larger than the budget for Leaves of Grass. Certainly Tim's salary on the Hulk was larger than the budget of Leaves of Grass, on a pro rata basis probably. You could say we were trying to make a movie with limited resources in a short time. It was one of the shortest schedules I ever made a movie on. But I didn't actually end up finding that was the most challenging part. I think it was probably trying to keep conversations between me and Tim to less than 15 minutes.
I think what both movies have in common is that even though they're both conceptual, this is an identical twins movie and the Hulk is conceptual for obvious reasons, based on a cartoon. That at the heart of each movie is a fantastic performance by Edward. And it was great working with Edward and supporting him in the Hulk in my small way. And in a slightly larger way, it was great supporting him pulling off this magic trick of a performance that he does in Leaves of Grass. And so actually the movies have a lot more in common than one would think.
I was reading that you guys, it was all local, like you had local special effects people come in. How was that experience, just keeping it all like contained locally, small?
Well, if you want to hear something really strange, it was all local, but the post-production digital effects for the twins work was done in Bulgaria because our financier, Avi Lerner, owns a digital effects house there, and so this is a real international production. But yeah, we did do pretty much everything we could in Louisiana, from shooting every frame of the movie there to doing a lot of research there. And
Tim even barbecued chickens with beer cans up their necks, just to be super local.
Very nice. So in previous interviews I read the characters Bill and Brady are kind of based off of parts of your personality. It was semi-autobiographical. What did you see in Edward about yourself to decide to cast him?
You know, I'd met Edward because I wanted him to do another movie of mine. I'm smart enough to know how extraordinary Edward is, and I wanted him to play the lead in another film I had written. And he was so gracious in declining to do that film that when I wrote Leaves of Grass, I always had him in mind for these two characters. And I will never tire of saying that were they not identical twins, Edward would have been a first choice for both characters. I just don't think there's any other actor like him. I did write characters who are, in a sense, a split version of myself, and I'm immensely proud that Edward brings them to life in the way that he does. But then, once Edward does bring them to life, they're every bit as much his characters as they are mine.
And also the same question for you, Edward. You were on a brief hiatus from film. What in this film brought you out of your hiatus? What made you want to make movies again?
Well, I made The Hulk in 2007, and we made this in 2008, so it wasn't that substantial a hiatus. I should have taken more of a hiatus. You know, for me, it's always it's always a blend of things. In this case, you know, the script that Tim had written was just laugh out loud funny, and on top of that, it was smart, and on top of that, it was very original. I just had never read a movie about Oklahoma pot growers that was interlaced with classical philosophy. And so it's very rare to read a good script. It's even more rare to read a good script that's very original, and so those things, and the fact that Tim brought it to me and my partner, and that we could all produce it together, and it was all very appealing.
What were some source materials that you had? Did you watch a lot of twin movies, like The Parent Trap, or?
I don't think we watched The Parent Trap. I think we watched. I looked back at, you know, Dead Ringers and Adaptation. We looked at, you know, what
documentary too that you found.
Right, there is a terrific documentary by Martin Campbell called Twins. It's short. It's about a 20-minute film about identical twins. But really, you know, the reference points for this were much more Tim's reference points. You know, many of them in literature, and many even more in music. I almost feel like the reference points for this film were more in things like Little Feat and the Allman Brothers, and, you know, one of my characters, this one, you know, is almost as much inspired by rock, you know, rock bands from that era as by any other film that we looked at.
Cool. And what about, did you have any other source materials for this?
A lot of it is just from my own life. I mean, the characters really are extreme versions of this split, as it were, that I see in myself. And I think we all have these splits in ourselves, these different versions of ourselves that seem to dominate in some sort of weird synthesis who it is we become. I love Edward likes to tell a story when he answers questions about how he performed against himself in the twin scenes, and he says, well, every one of us walks down the street talking to him or herself. And I think that Brady and Bill are very much these extreme conversations that I have within my own mind. And then Edward brings them to life. So I guess ultimately the source material is an amplified version of myself.
And many obscure Greek dramas.
Okay. So beside the obvious, you know, accident image, what were the most difficult parts about playing each character?
I think the most difficult thing was was figuring out how to make it feel like they were believably in the same space together.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of you know, overlapping conversations, interruptions. Is that all intentional, or?
Mm-hmm. I mean, that was, to us, that was kind of the, you know, the magic of it. Like, how do we achieve the sense of the way real conversation happens, which is it's, you know, interruptive and overlapping. And
I think what's miraculous about what Edward accomplishes in his performance is the really meticulous work that he does in the movie in terms of mapping out rhythms for himself in one character before he performs the other. And so you do have these breathtaking sequences from an acting point of view where you really forget that it's one actor playing the same roles. And I think that due to Edward's technical commitment to what we were able to achieve from a filmmaking point of view, and he was able to do from an acting point of view, it makes it pretty breathtaking. And I think that alone is reason to see the film.
Yeah, you achieved like on-screen chemistry with yourself playing the other character. That's pretty apparent. So did you shoot each? Did you do scene by scene like Brady and Bill, or did you do all one and then the other? How did you?
You really have to do it scene by scene. Edward can talk certainly better than I about what it's like as an actor to go through the day with that sort of demand on you. But just in short, technically, you have to shoot each scene in its entirety because you're locking the camera off, or you're teaching a remote a camera movement, a computerized camera movement, a repeatable move, so that the actor playing the second role can come in and duplicate a walk or what have you. But I don't know from an acting point of view here. Edward, what was it like from an acting point of view every day?
well, you know, there were only a certain number of days we had to do them both, so you know, it really, once we figured out the rhythm of how to fuse them together, it actually became sort of fun. You know, it was really fun. It was kind of one of the most fun things about the whole thing.
Cool. Tim, you wore many hats in this film. You were writer, director, and you were in the film as well. How did you juggle all these different...
You know, I've never acted in a movie that I've written and directed before, because I mean, what your question implies. You know, I never thought I'd be able to handle it, or it would be good for the movie for my focus to be distracted by wanting to take an acting role in the movie seriously. But this time, I was tempted by the notion of taking a role that would really legibly on screen be in support of the center of the movie, which is the actor playing Bill and Brady. And so Bolger doesn't say much, he's around a lot, but he really is sort of a sidekick. First for one character, Brady, and then for the character Bill. And it felt manageable to me. And so I had a blast doing it. And then when I was acting, I was able to turn to Edward, because we were always in scenes together, and sort of lean on him to, you know, as kind of my acting director, to let me know if I delivered the goods. And we had a really good interchange, and so it was a pretty positive experience.
Or to let him know when he was mouthing my lines silently, because he was the writer and director as well.
That's true. I'm embarrassed to say.
All right, well, that's all I have for you guys. Thank you so much for coming
Thank you.
by.
You bet.